Welcome to this video lecture. We will discuss insecure direct object reference. Insecure direct object reference means IDOR vulnerability occurs when an attacker can access or modify some reference to an object such as a file, database record, account, and etc., which should actually be inaccessible to them. For example, when viewing your account on a website with private profiles, you might visit www.xyz.com/user equal to 123. However, if you tried www.site.com/user equal to 124 and were granted access, this site would be considered vulnerable to an IDOR bug. Identifying this type of vulnerability ranges from easy to hard. The most basic is similar to the example above, where the ID provided is a simple integer auto-incremented as new records are added to the site. So testing for this would involve adding or subtracting one from the ID to check for results. If you are using Burp, you can automate this by sending the request to the Burp intruder. Set a payload on the ID and then use a numeric list with start and stop values stepping by one. When running that type of test, look for content lengths that changes, signifying different responses being returned. In other words, if a site isn't vulnerable, you should consistently get some type of access denied message with the same content length. Where things are more difficult is when a site tries to obscure references to their object references using things like randomized identifiers such as universal unique identifiers. In this case, the ID might be a 36-character alphanumeric string, which is impossible to guess. In this case, one way to work is to create two user profiles and switch between those accounts testing objects. So if you are trying to access user profiles with a UUID, create your profile with user A and then with user B, try to access that profile since you know the UUID. If you are testing specific records like invoice IDs, trips, and etc., all identified by UUIDs, similar to the example above, try to create those records as user A and then access them as user B since you know the valid UUIDs between profiles. If you are able to access the objects, that's an issue, but not overly severe since the IDs are 36 characters randomized strings. This makes them all but unguessable or isn't lost though. At this point, the next step is to try to find an area where that UUID is leaked. For example, on a team-based site, can you invite user B to your team? And if you do so, does the server respond with their UUID even before they have accepted? That's one way sites leak UUIDs. In other situations, check the page source when visiting a profile. Sometimes site will include a JSON block for the user, which also includes all of the records created by them, thereby leaking sensitive UUIDs. At this point, even if we can't find a leak, some sites will reward the vulnerability if the information is sensitive. It's really up to you to determine the impact and explain to the company why you believe this issue should be addressed. That's all about insecure direct object reference vulnerability. Thanks for watching. See you in the next class. Welcome. In this video lecture, we will discuss insecure direct object reference. Insecure direct object reference vulnerability. Before going to start, let's see one example that There are 5 objects or 5 files, and there is one another file called as demo. We can access all that 5 objects if our request contains reference of that demo file. And if we want to try to access that file object without the reference of the demo file, we are not able to access that file objects. What happens is an insecure direct object reference. The user supplied input is used to access a particular object. And if the user adds something malicious so that it can point to something different object, which means a user tries to access a particular object but user is not authorized to access that object. So if the user is successfully able to access that object, which means that web application is insecure direct object reference vulnerable. Here you can see that HTTP proxy request. You can see here, and this request is accepting one parameter called as page, and here is the page name source_viewer.php. This is our reference page parameter. If you can see the another parameter called PHP file, and the PHP file which we are trying to access is called userfile.php. We can try this userfile.php if we are making HTTP request with the reference of this file source.php. Now let's demonstrate how this insecure direct object reference works. For this lab demonstration, I am using OWASP Broken Web Application. Let me open this up, so let's go. You will find the insecure direct object reference and then source viewer. Let's have a look at the functionality of this page. If you want to look at the source code of any of them, just select any of the file and click on View File. Let's select any file to see the source of the file. Here I am choosing login.php and click a View File. Here you can see that source code of login page. Turn on Burp Suite intercept. So let's select any file in order to read its source code. Click on View File. And you will see that Burp Suite will start blinking. Let's go here to the proxy tab, and here is the full request which is going through our browser. It's a post request, and you can see that the request is going to this link. Here is the page source for .php. It's the page where we are written, you can see here. Now let's go back. So here is the HTTP header. It's a host information, user agent, then content length, then referrer. At the bottom here you will find the interesting information which give us an idea how direct object reference works. If you just look at here at the first here, it is written page and the value of the page is source_viewer.php, which is this one, and then it is an additional parameter PHP file which you can see here, and the PHP file name is the file name which we want to see here. You can see that we have selected upload file.php file, which means this page source.php, this one is actually acting as a reference in order to view the content of this page. Let's change the PHP file parameter value as index.php. Now let me just click on forward. If we are able to view the page source, which means this web page is insecure direct object reference vulnerable. Let's see that whether we are able to see the index.php source code. Here you can see that here is the source code of index.php file. you can see that we are successfully able to view the page source of index.php file. So we are not authorized to view the page source, but still we can able to view the page source due to insecure object reference. I told you earlier that what is insecure direct object reference, which means there are some files which are not authorized to view by some another person, means we are not authorized to see the source code of that files. So this web application is vulnerable to unsecure direct object reference. We can try to view the page source of different pages which are not listed in drop-down option. Let's resubmit the form again. Now let's try to view the page source of this page itself. We are on this page sourceviewer.php. Now PHP file parameters equals to sourceviewer.php. And if I just click on forward, here you can see the file is sourceviewer.php file, and we can able to see that the source of this page itself. That's all about insecure direct object reference vulnerability. Thanks for watching. See you in next lecture.